Hey there, Moran Fengler for Battleship Iowa, standing next to Turret 1 because we are about to blow up a myth. One of the questions that we get asked the most frequently is, if the ship were to capsize or roll over, would the turrets fall out? Or, in fact, are they actually designed to fall out? We are going to go inside the turret and catch up with Chief Engineer and COO Mike Getscher, who's done some pretty thorough research into the subject. We're going to pick his brain a little bit and look at the structure of the turret and see what we can discover. All right, so now we are inside the turret and we are going to find Mike. There he is. Hey there.
Hey everybody, Mike Getscher here, Chief Operating Officer and the Chief Engineer aboard Battleship Iowa. And today we are on the upper projectile flat of Turret 1. And so first off, I'd like to orient you to the structure that is around us. Right here we have what's called the conical bulkhead. This is the structure that supports the full weight of the 2,000-ton turret. Over here to the left, we have the cylindrical bulkhead, which is part of the rotating assembly of the turret. Above my hand, here to my right, is going to be this huge, gorgeous casting, which is the supporting structure for the roller path and also for the ring gear from which you can turn the turret. And lastly here we have the holding down clips. That's the proper term. These hold the turret down. Love the image here. We always like to find these connections to the people who built the ship. It's amazing. Those little markings there, BB61, 4-7201 and so forth, is really kind of an address for that piece. It tells you what it is and where it's supposed to go. Love the connection to the people. They did extraordinary work when they built the ship. So now we'll focus on the holding down clips, and that is in fact the terminology that is used inside the manual in the drawings. These holding down clips are large cast steel structures. There are 4 of them in the front of the turret, 2 in the back. They're obviously bolted to the cylindrical bulkhead with a ton of bolts. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the really important feature here is that there's 4 bolts in each one of these bays up at the top. These are adjustment bolts, and they adjust the clearance from the top of the hold down clip to the bottom of that big supporting structure down there, precisely machined. And the clearance is so tight, called out in the drawing, at 31 thousandths of an inch. That's the thickness of 5 to 7 pieces of paper. This thing is a precision instrument. It's not just there to hold in the turret. So now that we're oriented, we understand these holding down clips configuration. What are they really here for? One of the important things we want to talk about is that the 4 of them in the front of the turret are there concentrated around the first 180 degrees or forward 180 degrees of the turret. And there's 2 extra ones back here on either side of the buffer stop. Why would you configure it that way? The fact is that when these guns fire, the amount of energy that's transmitted into the structure is tremendous. And there's actually a moment, we call it a moment, where it's trying to rotate the turret upwards a little bit from the front, right? That's why they're oriented the way they are. These hold down clips are meant to do that. They're to do that under difficult circumstances. The forces involved in the turret, and they're meant to do it in a very, very precise manner. Once again, 5 to 7 thicknesses of a piece of paper around the entire forward end perimeter of the hold down clips. That's critical. So when we first started talking about this falling out myth of a turret, we couldn't find a lot of formal information about a holding down clip, but we did find one little tidbit. The Tirpitz, as you know, was attacked by the British deep in a fjord, underwater explosion, a lot of damage. In the after-action report after the war, the chief engineer of the Tirpitz, sister ship to the Bismarck, talked about how the holding down clips on the turrets were in fact stretched and damaged due to the explosion. Phenomenal amount of energy. Another reason for these holding down clips to be there. In the event of a major explosion or some other kind of hit or drama around the ship, they're there to keep that turret in place so it can still keep firing. So now we look at these clips, and they're all bolted up to the cylindrical bulkhead, and there's 260 bolts, very large bolts that can hold a lot of weight. We checked in with our structural engineer and did a calculation in shear, which is the sliding back and forth, basically just vertical weight shear. These bolts can in fact hold the weight of a turret. So now let's talk about the myth. We look in history at some of the more violent and deep water wrecks, such as the Bismarck, the HMS Hood, the Yamato, and the Musashi. They all met a very violent end in deep water, and every one of them lost their turrets. We look at some of the shallow water rollovers, such as the Royal Oak and Scapa Flow rolled over, retained our turrets. All of the World War I German ships that were interned in Scapa Flow and they were scuttled by the Germans, they rolled over, they retained their turrets, and in fact they were even recovered with their turrets still attached. Or look at the Nagato at the Bikini Atoll test, it rolled over and still has her turrets in place as well. So in these shallow water rollover events, you really have the capability here to allow a turret to stay in place. Not a lot of violence of action, not a lot of other things going on, they just roll over and they stay there. But in a deep water and violent wreck, all bets are off. So we've had fun talking about turrets potentially falling out on a battleship. Some years ago we did a lecture on this after our initial research, and there's a link down inside below us here for a great video on that, just for the lecture itself. And as always, thank you for joining us today, and hit that subscribe button. And if you'd like, please donate to the ship. We need your support all the time. We take care of these things, and it's really a passion for us to do that. Thank you so much.